I hereby call to order the October 25th,
Make sure you
20
have your phone. Thank you.
2023 meeting of the City of Prescott General Plan Committee. Board members present, please state present when I call your name. James McCarver, Gary Warab,
Present and deaf now.
Deborah Thalassides, Don Michaelman,
Here, present.
Rob Moyer,
Present.
Jim Huffman,
Present.
Ralph Hess, Mary Fredrickson,
Here.
Andre Carmen, Terry Sapio,
Present.
and I, Ted Gambogi. So do we have a forum?
Yes.
Good.
6, 7.
Also want to recognize staff and city leadership present, Tori Dorison, George Worley, Tammy DeWitt,
And Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Chelsea Walden, and Matt Podrecki, who is a happier person than me today. And I see out there somewhere Eric Moore from City Council. This is an open meeting and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public, local cable, and/or radio stations, and may be rebroadcast. The number of board members present is
7.
7, so it will require 4 votes for a majority. All parties wishing to be heard, including committee members, are required to state their name prior to speaking in order to ensure proper recordation. Members of the public are required to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and may be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. Also want to recognize Council Member Kathy Rusing, who just came in the room. Okay, that's call order and the roll call. Now we come to open call to the public.
The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement, and residents may comment and address the committee on matters not included on the agenda during the call to the public. Please complete a speaker card that's on the back table and submit it to city staff prior to meeting being convened. Speakers are limited for 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited 40 minutes in total. Citizens are limited to addressing the committee 4 times regarding the same topic. Members of the committee may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda, and therefore interaction will be limited to the following: responding to criticism, requests to staff to investigate and report on the matter, or future requests that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. The only one I have for the call to the public is Mike Parrish.
Mike Parrish?
I am Mike Parrish.
Will you come up here?
Thank you. I'm Mike Parrish, 3180 Bar Circle A Road, Prescott, Arizona, and I'm with Sundog Disconnect Group. The reason why I'm here is I wanted to talk about the Prescott General Plan, the fact that the 2015 General Plan has mention of the Sundog connector currently being studied. Of course, that's being done by SIMPO. And it's also was mentioned in the, I believe, the 2006 General Plan about a Sundog connector between Prescott Lakes Parkway and State Route 69. Our group is a coalition of Save the Dells, the Yavapai Hills HOA, and also Prescott Valley Citizens Alliance. Last month, SIMPO did an open house. I don't know if you're aware of that. The public was invited. It made the paper. Probably about 200 people there, most of them wearing these stickers. And if you look in this room, same thing. We're opposed to this road. We realize it's not in your court right now that SIMPO is studying it, but we want it out of the general plan. We do not want this. We think it's counter to the IGA trying to make the regional park. I believe the city voted yesterday to fund the purchase of the first, was it 2,200 acres? Did that go through?
Yes.
Okay, so that can go to any high bidder, from what I understand. It's not a done deal yet. If any developers sense that this road is going through, you'll never get that land. It's just not going to happen. So I think that they're mutually exclusive. You can't do the IGA, you can't do the road. We really want it out of the general plan. So by a show of hands, people who are against the Sundog Connector, could you raise your hands? The citizens of this city thought enough to come to this meeting that usually isn't well attended, but we're not going away. We just wanted to let you know this, okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
We don't have any alert speaker cards.
No more cards? Okay, our next item is approval of the September 27th, 2023 General Plan meeting minutes. Does anybody have any questions about those?
No, but I make motion to approve.
Second by Rob Moyer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our second item is an item that our attorney, Matt Perdecki, is going to discuss. Oh, I got to read it into the record. Okay. It concerns the nomination and discussion from the Public Works Traffic Engineer. Nomination and selection of new General Plan Committee Vice Chair.
Thank you, and this came to my attention this morning. Matthew Bedrek, the Deputy City Attorney. My understanding and belief is that the Vice Chair and the Chairman for this committee were appointed officially by the City Council, and that's going to be probably how they're going to take care of this. So my recommendation on this item is just to defer it until such time as the Council makes their official decisions on who will be the Chair and Vice Chair of the committee. As far as your next regularly scheduled meeting, my understanding is Mr. Gambogi is going up to the City Council. Congratulations. And whoever the Vice Chair is will chair that meeting and be the chair until such time as the Council makes an official vote on who your new Chair and Vice Chair will be.
So we need a motion to defer this item to the next meeting.
I have a question first.
Go ahead.
So is that a state charter or city charter requirement?
Is what a state charter or city charter requirement?
That council gets to decide who,
It's not a city charter requirement. It's not state law. It's the policy of the council.
stop
Okay.
smiling at me, Jim.
Do I have a motion?
Don Michaelman, I make a motion, we defer item B until the next meeting.
Second by Rod.
Seconded by Rod Moyer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Our next item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion from Public Works Traffic Engineer Ian Mattingly regarding the circulation element.
All right, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Try to set this up so I can talk to you guys. So good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. Again, I'm Ian Mattingly. I'm the Transportation Manager, City Traffic Engineer for the City of Prescott. Thank you for having me to discuss the update to the circulation element. Staff from Public Works and the Prescott Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Traffic Advisory Committee have been working on this update. See if I can figure out how to use this down. Yeah, I've heard that on the other videos. So my presentation today is intended to provide an overview of the process that we have been taking and to highlight some of the changes that the committee will see, this committee, when the final draft version of the circulation element is provided to you. Today's agenda will cover the purpose and objective of the circulation element, the existing sections, the review process and schedule, how we're handling the goals and strategies in the current element, and changes to the plan, including expanded sections and new sections, and then lastly, next steps and where we go from here.
Excuse me,
Yes.
just maybe as a repeat, Ian, but ARS stands for what?
Arizona Revised Statutes. Yeah, and we'll see that, I think, on the next slide. But yeah, feel free to interrupt anytime, any questions. So the circulation element identifies and sets forth the roadway system expectations for a community. Prescott's circulation element includes a reference to the Arizona Revised Statute, ARS, that pertain to the rights of bicyclists and pedestrians as shared road users. This supports the multimodal approach to the current plan and its goals and strategies, and creates a balanced, efficient system: vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Transit as well, I should mention that. The key objective of the document is to includes enabling efficient movement of people, goods, and services, and providing a transportation system that provides connectivity within and between adjacent communities in the region. The existing 13-page document was reviewed and included 7 general topic categories. They're listed there on the left. The SIMPO, Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, I'll say that once and then SIMPO, Regional Transportation Plan, and Transportation Planning in general, Traffic Management and System Management, Transportation Modes and Limits, Traffic Impacts, Safety and Management, and then the Transportation Network. And this includes the sections on roadways, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and public transit. There is an airport section that's being handled separately by the airport. And so we've asked, PBTAC and staff has asked the airport to review that section. It's contained within the circulation element, though. And then lastly, traffic safety. So that's what's in the plan currently, but what is not in the plan, and you can see some of these things in the highlighted area on the right, is a description of the existing roadway system. We have no overview of the existing system, its performance, and its challenges. The current document also lacks detail of future developments and roadways which are planned. There's only one circulation map provided, and it lacks details and only includes a few of the known future roadways that we have planned. The existing sections there on the left are grouped in a manner that connects similar subject matter, but some subjects are repeated several times throughout the document. This affects the flow and understanding of the subjects as you read the current document, and in some cases leads to a disjointed and repetitive nature. So, to address the update of the circulation element, Public Works staff and the PBTAC have been reviewing the plan at monthly meetings. The primary purpose of this review is to accomplish the following. We want to determine the goals and strategies that are in the existing plan and determine whether they've been accomplished, and if they have, remove them. Update and keep the goals and strategies that have not been met that are still relevant, and add any new goals and strategies that are needed. We also want to ensure that the document elements are useful to guide the city as it develops in the future. The process has been underway for several meetings since September, with committee members reviewing half the document each month and then providing input back to staff. Staff has added proposed maps and some new sections for consideration. The process is still underway and will continue until a final draft is developed and approved by PBTAC later this year. This will be a draft recommended version for you guys to consider. So as part of the goals and strategies of the plan, and I haven't reviewed the entire general plan document, but the circulation element includes there's goals associated with each type of facility. And then it has accompanying strategies that are the meat and potatoes way that we accomplish these things. So to aid in determining if these have been met or if they need to be retained or changed, we're creating tables to document the process. These tables include a summary of each of the strategies. So they'll have a goal. For instance, the goal will be written above. This one is for roadway arterial streets, provide a level of service C. And then we list those out, the strategies. These are not all of them for this one example, but we determine whether or not it has been met. There's also a column to mark if the strategy should be kept, and a notes section so additional details can be provided. Using these tables, each strategy for all the goals can be documented and resolved. The one shown here is an example of arterials, like I said, and a few strategies linked to it. So for instance, strategy 1-2, one of the things we said was we wanted the city and its citizens wanted to develop a City of Prescott transportation plan by 2016. Did we meet that? No, we did not meet that. Should we keep that strategy? We feel yes in our current review. And then we also mentioned that the citywide traffic study may have some relevance to that because we've done that now. So while we haven't done it by the date, we are doing that now, and we're going to council soon to talk about that. So that's how this table is being set up.
Ian, I got a question for you. We're in the throes of evaluating so many different issues. There's the discussion about the expansion of 89. There's the discussion of the Sundog connector. And we hear all kinds of rationales or arguments for or arguments against. And then there's this issue about growth and all the development up north. In your planning process, do you have an analysis of how much traffic is on each road today? And are you able to project that, say, 10 years into the future?
Yeah, so our membership in the CYMPO, that's a planning organization focused on transportation. So we sit on the technical advisory committee, and then we have an executive member who's a council person, and our public works director sits on the TAC now. But they are mandated, SIMPO is mandated to do a regional transportation plan, of which the city of Prescott is included every 5 years. So it evaluates the current conditions of our roadway system using transportation modeling. And then it takes into account all the zoning that is currently in place, all the details they know regarding real and imminent development that will happen. They then run those models, and it's region-wide, and that will provide us how are we doing right now. It's for our regional roads, but that would include all the way things down to like collectors. And so that gives us a good snapshot of how our roadways are doing, and that's how we identify these roadways like some of the ones you've mentioned. Controversial roadways, just roadways that we need to improve. So we have that, and then it reaches out typically, for instance, the 2018 study reached out to 2030 and 2045, 2 extended period, and it does an evaluation there as well to see how are the roadways doing, and then it provides a recommendation of projects that should be implemented, like capacity improvements, modernization, intersection signalization, widenings if appropriate, and it then gives that in the report.
Okay.
So yes, we do have that, and we're in you'll see later because I talk about that, and we talk about how some of those things are missing in our current circulation element, how we're going to include some of those, and then SIMPO is currently going out to get a consultant on board to update the 2018 plan. It's 5 years later. We're 2023. We need to do the next one, and then we'll have a reach to 2035 and 2050. So
Thank you.
That's the answer. So I talked about this example. Then these tables will create tables like this for each of the goals and strategies, and they can be provided with the final PBTAC draft to the General Plan Committee, just so you guys have a quick reference of why some goals are gone, new ones are there. Along with the review of the existing sections, the document is being expanded in several areas. The SIMPO Regional Transportation Plan is mentioned in the existing document. We're going to expand that just to talk a little bit more about it. We're also going to expand the section on public transit. The changes to the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan section, will include a focus on the level of service results from the transportation system. We just talked about that. In the 2 future years, 2030 and 2045, as I mentioned, we're updating it. So if the update is available, then we'll do it for the 2035 and 50, if that's available in time before you guys go to the public and do your final document for the citizens to adopt. The public transit section will be expanded as well to include the SIMPO transit planning efforts and recommendations from their completed studies. It will provide maps and implementation details for the future Prescott system that is recommended. That's not one that's been approved. It's just they've looked at this. And there will also be a reference to the related system now operating in Prescott Valley. So that'll be the expansion of these sections. Another area which is being expanded is the transportation planning section, which will include planned regional roadways and developments that we know of. This will provide information about future regional roadway locations and expectation for roadway connections. This helps planners and city leaders understand the big picture for roadway circulation. It may also help with public support of these regional routes as they are implemented, assuming this document is approved with them in it. These roadways will be reflected on the updated circulation map.
One more question, if you
Yep.
could go back to that. I think everybody in the room knows what the Sundog Connector is. Could you just briefly describe what the Great Western Corridor is?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the next one so you can see it. So in support of what I just said, these types of maps would be what we see as going forward out of our recommendations. You would see maps like this going into the study. The Great Western, you just mentioned, there was that's at the bottom of the map with the white circle. That's 89A. To the left, the diagonal line, that's 89 going out to Chino. And the airport's not really represented there, but this is a way big scale. Those are sections there. But that's a planned corridor. It goes approximately 89A near the tank site as you go into, and it's a controlled access facility that has been identified in various transportation plans and the RTPs through the years for basically to come up the valley and provide an alternative way to get up to Chino.
Is it a bypass of Chino?
I mean, I don't know that it's been described as a bypass. It's just that area. You can't, one of the issues with this whole area is that we have limited routes. That's why we're talking about things that aren't maybe that palatable to some people. But we don't have grid systems and things. But that's a large area of land with a lot of development. So it's just smart to plan other facilities that can handle the traffic that need to go up into that area.
Yeah.
Ian, Terry Sapio, where that white circle is at 89A, where is that located? Is that Viewpoint Drive? Is that Glassford Hill Road?
Yeah, so it's east of Larry Caldwell and before you get to Glassford Hill. So it's
Okay.
approximately halfway between Prescott and Prescott Valley, and there's a water tank there. There's a water tank site. It's the old 89 road access where it comes in. There's still an
Is
at-grade
that the
intersection.
Granite Dells Parkway?
It's past that. Further
past
east
Granite
towards PV.
Farther east. Okay, between Granite Dells Parkway and,
As you climb the hill, you'll
Glassford
come
Hill
up there,
Road.
and there's an actual intersection there that's at grade.
okay.
And that's where the water tank site is, and the old 89 highway comes out there.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what's been identified. Again, these are planning studies. We want to be clear.
Yeah.
This is a planning document. This is the circulation element. We're not showing things that will for sure be built, but these are roadways that have been studied and recommended. So what we're saying is that when we're looking at this and we bring something back to you, you'll likely see some of these planned roadways still included.
Isn't there another plan to connect Fane Road with 169?
Fane Road with
That was in
169.
2006.
Yeah, so not hooked down to 69, but keep going across. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
In the PV area?
Goes from
Dewey
Fane-
P.
went to Fane's, went
There
to
have been various iterations out there. I think that one's gone right now, and that's why the ADOT is focusing, I think, on intersection improvements at 169 and 69.
Matt,
Uh-huh.
excuse me,
Yep.
Matt, Mary Frederickson. Because I have bad eyesight, that east-west road at the top, the yellow,
Yeah.
where
yeah.
this Great Western would eventually hook up into if it happened.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's not that. It's coming in, I think, at like 4 south or 5 south, but yeah, it's a new road. That is not an existing road.
Oh, all right.
So All the yellow and the green, all of those are future roadways. The one that continues up, these are just future things. This is long range planning, large dollars.
Right, and so I don't, and again, since this is just somewhere out in the future, maybe, the AVO, the overlay for the airport, does that extend from the airport out towards Great Western? How would that be impacted?
I think it's like 2 miles further east. I don't think this impacts any of those things. This is quite a ways outside of that. The scale is really big here. You can't even, the airport would fit about where it says future.
Thank you.
Yeah, that general area. So other sections that we are, for plan developments, so we intend to include additional maps of things like Deep Well Master Plan. They're already approved. They include roadways that you see constructed today. Willow Creek Road is currently undergoing a widening, and there's a new road, Jenna Lane, that's being constructed. That came out of these types of planning documents that are adopted. So it's appropriate, we feel, that they would be included, so that when you see them on the circulation map, you can see where they came from. I don't know, we don't know exactly what the maps will look like, but this is an example. Deep Well Master Plan would likely be included. As it's appropriate, as annexations and things like that, other planning goes on. Things like AED could be included, might be included. The roadway system is not set exactly, but it's good information because then that's how we show our overall planning for our future roads on our circulation map. Granite Dells Estates is, all these roads are basically platted. The one at the north road that goes east-west, coming off the roundabout, that is Granite Dells Parkway in the roundabout there. So that's Dells Ranch Road, and it does go to the east, and it does have a plan to, that's about the location of that Great Western interchange where it comes off the map. And so that's kind of goes along with the connectivity within the city, but also with adjoining local governments and things. So that's appropriate to have in there. Get back on track. Yes, sir. So along with this, several new sections are also being added to provide more information on the performance and operation of the roadway system and to share the improvement projects which are planned to help address deficiencies. The street system evaluation, currently we do not have any kind of evaluation in there that talks about how is the roadway system doing. We will use the information from the regional transportation plan, either the 2018 or the updated 2023, to at least include some information regarding how our main roadway system, these major roadway systems that are built today, are doing. And we don't have that. It will use the data and figures from the RTP. We'll also include the street infrastructure improvement plan, streets IIP. It's on the left there, says future transportation system improvements. There's a list of projects related to that. Those are related to, those were identified in 2018 based on transportation, just growth in the area and the impacts it will have on the transportation system. So the projects that are identified in that will be placed in the circulation element because they address some of those issues. Finally, we are going to add a section on truck routes. The city has an adopted truck route policy, which includes the designation of the roadways that are appropriate for through truck traffic, local truck traffic, and we have an associated map that will be added to provide a clear understanding of where commercial vehicles should be expected. It also allows us to update in more of a visible way as developments are built. So as we know, as planning comes on or we update this from time to time, the truck route map would be updated as well. With these changes, the document will be more comprehensive and useful. It will include known future roadways and improvement projects and provide readers a better understanding of the roadway system today and how it may look in the future. It's a planning document, however. It's a planning document. Just Goals and strategies that are included should be relevant and useful and align with the desire of the community. And as I said at the beginning of the presentation, the process for updating the circulation element with staff and PB Tech is still underway. The reviewed, expanded, and new sections will be finalized by staff using the input we have received at the PB Tech meetings, and it'll be crafted into a draft version for their adoption. We expect this to happen by the end of the year or early next year. And once approved, it is our plan to provide this to the General Plan Committee for your review and then use in early 2024. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any more questions.
Any questions, Gary?
Yes, Gary Warab. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate you being here and doing this. One of the areas that I'm involved in, that certainly Prescott is involved in, is water. And to my knowledge, under your street system evaluation or any other areas, it's not present. The world's leading community for recharge and their aquifers are filling up is Tucson. And that is because a person named Brad Lancaster got involved, first illegally and then legally, with curb cutting and insisting that stormwater be captured. They now have a regulation that the first half inch of stormwater hitting the streets, new developments and commercial, must be captured. They also are excited about curb cutting and regeneration. We don't do any of that here. Is there any possibility that Public Works could look into that? Like I said, our aquifers are diminishing, theirs are increasing because of those new standards. And I think it's really important that we pay attention to the #1 city in the world.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, Public Works directors here, members of Public Works staff are here. As it currently stands, there's not a lot of, we don't go into the kind of details that would include that sort of thing, although this section does have commentary regarding complete streets and some things like that. Certainly, we'll take your comment, and if it's appropriate in other sections that are being reviewed that are, in Public Works, I'm sure they'll be addressed.
Well, certainly when we're talking about new streets, new roads, and new developments, to me, it should be mandated that all new developments capture stormwater as well as housing capture rainwater, and that's never been addressed, to my knowledge, in Prescott. Yet we're all having to pay for water, and if we're talking about $300 million to connect to a useless system that would ruin the Verde, why not look at things that are working all over the world, especially in Arizona, that their aquifers are filling up. They're saying they will not need the Colorado River because they're doing what should be done.
Don Michaelman.
Ian, how does the city determine whether an intersection should be signalized or a roundabout?
So, So this is a planning document, but we do have engineering documents. We have the general engineering standards. They're basically the guidance for engineers when they come to the city of Prescott on how they will develop and build things like the roadway infrastructure. So likely that might be a place for things like curb cuts and water capture. But within that, we do have a traffic section, which talks about geometrics. It also talks about traffic control. And so we do have a specific, a section that talks about if a traffic signal is warranted, and then the reasons and when you would consider a roundabout in lieu of a traffic signal to accomplish certain things like increased safety, or if you have a need to have additional capacity at a traffic signal and you can't meet it with that, you go to a roundabout. So we actually do have design standards and criteria that basically guide a civil engineer to go from a signal to a roundabout, and it's in our general engineering standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has there ever been any studies on the operating costs of a signalized intersection versus a roundabout on a 10-year, 20-year basis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to quote you numbers, but absolutely there's studies regarding that. I know that internally we've done some stuff because roundabouts cost more up front, and signals cost a little less, but there is a difference. A signal might cost with the maintenance that's required monthly, and then electricity costs are obviously somewhat higher, but it's on the order of a few $1,000s difference per year, so it's not substantial. But there are studies that would probably go into great detail about that over like a 10 or 20 year period.
And roundabouts would deter running red lights, I believe, too.
Yeah, they have safety benefits. That's why they're used.
Because there's no red light.
Just the brake lights in front of you there.
Any other questions of Ian?
Chair?
Mary?
Yes, Mary Frederickson. Looking at the 2015 general plan, there is a section within the circulation element that references SIMPO, talks about Prescott and the other entities around are members of SIMPO on a voluntary basis. Something that I don't know, and I think generally people might want to see something in there about the relationship between Prescott and SIMPO as far as the weight given to SIMPO recommendations. Since we are members of SIMPO, Prescott is, I'm assuming that there's some voting on recommendations within SIMPO. Participating in SIMPO, does that suggest that we take their recommendations with great weight, or is it just an element that goes into the discussion amongst council?
Yeah, so that's a good comment. And, SIMPO is basically, we say SIMPO, but it's basically the agencies that are the members. That is what SIMPO is. And so decisions to undertake studies, spend money, make recommendations, they're going through a technical advisory committee, which is made up of representatives from each of the communities or member agencies. And then they're then being brought to an executive board, which is made up of elected officials from those committees. So I would say that the decisions that are made and the recommendations and just the reports and all those things, they are going through a process which is, at least at that time, in the best interest of the agencies, or they wouldn't be voting for I would think they wouldn't be voting for them. But that's a good comment. We are going to expand the SIMPO section. Right now it talks about certain things, but it might be good to explain how, at least the general background of how it's representative of each of the agencies, and so there's a little better understanding of that.
I guess my thought is that we are just one entity that funnels into SIMPO, and Prescott Valley versus the county, Dewey Humboldt. I mean, they may have different emphasis in those areas than Prescott might within ours. I'm just wondering, maybe this is actually something that a question to the council, how much weight do we give SIMPO, considering that we're just one of several entities?
And then they represent Prescott Valley. The members represent Prescott, so they're varying opinions. I will say, though, again, they're planning documents. The results of these things are planning documents for use of leaders and other people who make the final decision. So just like this document is going to be a planning document. Just because it's here, it should be recommended and things, but things change. And ultimately, someone needs to make a decision as to what will be built or not built or how things look. It's a planning agency looking at long-range transportation. So
thank you.
That's all I have.
Rob?
Rod Boyer, I have a concern, or at least a question, about the sophistication or lack thereof of models used to project future traffic handling needs. For example, the development in this town is all out on the north end now. And I think it would be a grave mistake to assume that traffic between downtown, say, and the north would be proportional to the new population growth. There will be new industry for jobs out there, and there will be new commercial for shopping out there. So, in fact, it may not lead to any more traffic at all, or very little more, coming into town and out on the north and south routes.
Yeah, so I can only give you my experience. I worked for the city for over 20 years, worked with SIMPO for that time. These regional transportation plans are done every 5 years, and they are updated with whatever the most recent data is, the growth, what developments have come or not come. And so they've been pretty close. I'm not saying models aren't perfect. I do agree with that, and things can change. But typically, within the 5-year period, you don't have 40,000 people come with an entire new city up there. I haven't seen that yet. So as a traffic engineer, I don't discount the fact that our numbers will still continue to increase because the studies that we do and the counts we do continue to show that those models are relatively very, very close. And so I've heard that, and I understand that, kind of make the development more clustered so that you don't come in. But Prescott will always remain a draw. The downtown and what it has going down in the south end will always be a draw. That will never change, in my opinion, as the traffic engineer here. And so all we can do is put in the most accurate numbers and what's happening, and then run the model and then confirm it through counts and checks. And if it continues to be right, and adjust it as needed. But I hear your point and I understand. And if things do change out there, that could change the traffic. And we will likely see that in our counts, and we will see that in the future models. But I'm just, this thing is going to show what the existing things say. The best data that we have currently, that's what has to go into here. We can't project what might occur. We just have to look at historical things and what's happened and give the best data. That's really what I have to say about that.
Ian, kind of related to what Rod's saying, I enrolled in Prescott Citizens Academy, and I highly recommend it to anyone here. At the last session, one of the speakers said that Prescott is a city of 47,000 at night and 100,000 during the day. Mm-hmm. Is that about right?
Yeah, I didn't say that, but
you weren't there.
We do.
I think Gwen said
we do have a lot of people who come in during the day.
But George, you've heard that?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
100,000 people come.
George, did you say that?
It wasn't us.
Any other questions? All right, that was a discussion item, so thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you.
We have one speaker card.
Oh, we have a speaker card, okay.
We have one speaker card. Jan, you?
Question was already answered and addressed by.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Okay.
We didn't hear that.
It's already been addressed. She said her comment has already been addressed.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item then.
Yeah, next presentation. Thank you, Ian. So a presentation and discussion from the Martin Luther King Committee regarding adding anti-discrimination language to the general plan. Push the down button. And you can stand if you like.
All right.
Settle down. Hi, I'm Jim Halbling. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here representing the Martin Luther King Committee. And you might remember I appeared as a part of the general call to the public a couple months ago. I introduced the subject that we're going to talk about today, and I'm here to further discuss that and then get some comments from the committee as a part of today's discussion. So our committee is proposing that the general plan community quality element include wording that states that the city will not condone discrimination of any kind. And so the rationale that we have for that is, part of it is that the committee members, a couple of committee members put together a survey that we sent out to various community organizations asking for feedback in terms of whether discrimination was actually an issue within the city and to assess the level of discrimination if it was. And so I'll be sharing the results of that with you as a part of this presentation. I should point out now that I'll also be presenting some additional information from a survey that was generated by the Yavapai County Health Organization, Community Health Organization, that also contains information relative to discrimination on the LGBTQ community. Another part of the rationale that we have is that cities, there have been studies that have shown that cities that embrace diversity have enhanced tourism, education, innovation, and restaurant choice. And since all of those fall within the, what I would think would fall within the community quality element of the plan, it makes sense for us to include words that say we will not condone discrimination, and thereby enhance the probability that we'll have a more diverse community here. Oh, and on the previous slide I showed there's a reference to one of the studies. There's others that can give you those references as well upon request. And so next I'm going to get into the survey results in terms of the survey that was conducted by the Martin Luther King Committee members. So we,
Jim,
yes.
Could you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
At the bottom, you have an asterisk and it says studies.
Yeah, so that's a footnote.
What is that source at the bottom?
So that is a publication. I don't remember what the SEP stands for.
CIC.com.au, which leads me to believe it's Australian.
It is. It's Australian.
It is Australian.
It is Australian. Right. And so I'm going to be presenting the results of the survey that was conducted by the Martin Luther King Committee next. We ended up with 247 respondents, which is not anywhere near the number of respondents we were hoping for, but it's still a significant number. We feel that one instance of discrimination within the city is too many, and you're going to see that there are many more than one respondent that indicates that actually the majority of the 247 respondents indicated that they had experienced some level of discrimination while in Prescott.
Jim, can I?
Sure.
Mary Frederickson.
Sure.
Just a question. You said you sent out these surveys to various groups around the
Yes.
city?
Yes.
Can you give me a snapshot of who got these surveys?
Yeah.
So who,
Sure.
what's the pool that responded?
Sure. So the PRISM Network, which is an LGBTQ organization, was part of the distribution. They sent it out to all the organizations that they work with, which includes ARP. Also the Collective Impact Program, which is a collaboration of various organizations that help in terms of homelessness and they're charity organizations basically. All the colleges, maybe not all, yeah, I guess all the colleges, Embry-Riddle, Yavapai College, Prescott College, North Point Academy was another, the instructors there. Let's see, what else?
Jim, do you
Yeah.
have a sense of if there was any tendency of clustering from responses from some groups versus others? You mentioned like the colleges.
Yeah.
From them or from the charity group or?
The results or the responses are all anonymous, so I don't know where they came from. We weren't able to track where they came from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim,
Sure.
Jim Huffman. Did you mention the total number of surveys that went out?
I don't have that number either.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let me get on to the survey results. So the first item, survey item, asks people to identify where they live. And so you can see 70% of the respondents live in Prescott, 172 of them. And over 80%, or 90% rather, about 92% of the respondents live in the Quad City area, based on the 7.7% being the other city. And then the next item asks people to identify the type of discrimination that they...
Jim,
Yes.
no, could you go back to that slide again?
Sure.
So you sent a survey to people in Prescott Valley, Chino, and Dewey Humboldt.
We sent it to various organizations, which may be comprised of people from different
Okay,
areas.
because I'm looking at other city and I'm thinking, how could you have another city? But if a student at
Could be
one
a
of the colleges
right.
lived in Phoenix, that would be okay.
That could be part of it.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. The next item asks people to identify the type of discrimination that they experienced, if they did experience that. So the first, while in Prescott, I have, or someone I love has been made to feel unwelcome due to my race, ethnicity, and then at the bottom I have the remainder of that statement: sexual orientation, gender expression, religious or spiritual practice, age, or mental, physical health condition. And we had 133 responses, or 57%. So you can see at the bottom, there was 234 responses to this question. So there were basically 13 people that decided they didn't want to respond. And the percentages are all based on the 234 responses. People also had, I should point out up front that people had the opportunity to choose one or more than one of these categories. So the percentages on the right do not add up to 100, because people did choose more than one of these categories in terms of describing how they were discriminated against. But we had 133 people say that they were made to feel unwelcome in Prescott due to their background. The second, people while in Prescott, I have been subjected to slurs or jokes due to my race, ethnicity, etc. So we have 89 people that said that they were subjected to slurs or jokes within Prescott. Received poor service in a place of business. We had 68 people say that they received poor service in a place of business while in Prescott. Have been treated unfairly by my employer. We had 48 people say that they experienced that, unfortunately. And then none of the above, about a third of the people said that they had not experienced any discrimination. So
I got another question.
Sure, go.
Question 2, 3, and 4. Give us some context. You know, they heard a joke, they got poor service in a restaurant. But and the first question says, been made to feel unwelcome. Could you give us some context to that? How's that measured?
Well, that would be their feeling that they did not feel like they belonged in Prescott, or that they were told or given some indication that the person they were talking to would rather have them be somewhere else other than be in Prescott, that they did not want them here. That's the way I would read it.
You mean like at a restaurant or something?
Any situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we had about a third of the people say none of the above. So if you subtract that 78 from the 234, that means that we had 150 people, over 150 people, 158, indicated on this, for this item that they had experienced some discrimination in Prescott. Next item, we allow people to identify what targeted group they were a part of that experienced the discrimination. So while in Prescott, I have, or someone I love has, been discriminated against due to and again, people can select more than one here, so the percentages add up to a lot more than 100. And then I list all of the different items that we had on the previous slide in terms of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, et cetera. So on this slide, you see that 97 people feel that they were discriminated against due to their sexual orientation. That was the number one response. Gender expression, 80. Race, 76. Ethnicity, 64. And you can go down the list. So you can see that people have multiple cases in terms of multiple different target groups. So if it was somebody that was Hispanic and gay, then they would answer both race and sexual orientation. So, but you can see that the numbers are much higher than we would like them to be, right? And then we added another question or item that we asked people to indicate if having a non-discrimination ordinance would make a difference to them in terms of spending money in a city, visiting and spending money, or using that or targeting that city as a vacation destination. And so you can see here that 174, so we had 194 responses for this question. 174 people indicated, 90% of those responding said that they'd be willing to spend money in a city that had a non-discrimination ordinance because they would feel more comfortable going there and spending money and spending time there. And then 152 people, or about 80% of the respondents to this question, said they would be willing to recommend the city that had a non-discrimination ordinance as a vacation destination. Okay, so in addition to indicating a response, we offered the opportunity to the respondents to give us comments to back up their assessment, basically, to give their first-person accounts. And to me, this is the most telling or the most important part of the survey results, because here you're actually able to see and read what these people experienced when they were experiencing the discriminatory actions while in Prescott. So of 108 comments that were provided, 68 of them indicated some level of discrimination. So a little over 60% of them. And so I took those 68 comments because I felt they were most pertinent to what we're talking about today, and put them into a separate document, excuse me, and I provided that to Tammy along with the slides that I'm presenting today. So you guys have access to that. But I did take some of the comments, so I just basically took the first 6 comments that were recorded in the Google Forms response section and included them in the presentation today so we can take a look at them. So I'm going to show those next. And I'm not going to read these comments to you, because I'm not going to stand up here and just read them. Read all of them. I'm going to read one of them, though. First one I'm not going to read, although it's interesting, that person did not feel that they had experienced discrimination, but they were still angry because they had heard stories. They had had friends that had experienced discrimination while in Prescott. And they felt that an anti-discrimination policy would be a good idea because it would indicate that Prescott is dedicated to valuing people as people, to just take people as another person and not look at their background before judging them. The second is a first-person account, and I'm going to read this one. So many of us cannot even step outside the doors of our own homes without being subjected to racial, homophobic, or misogynistic slurs from our neighbors. City of Prescott and Prescott Valley consistently make one thing clear. The worst of us can act with complete impunity, for here white is right, specifically white men. So I've got 4 more comments that I'm going to show here. You guys can read those on your own, so I'll just give you a minute to read those. So yeah, this is not something that we want in our city. Okay, so there are 62 other comments within that document that I provided, similar to this. It's a lot of people. Okay, so as I said earlier, there's an additional survey that I want to discuss today that was initiated by the Yavapai County Community Health Services Organization, which is a survey of the LGBTQ plus healthcare situation within Prescott and Yavapai County. And that survey showed that 62% of the respondents have been refused health care in Prescott and Yavapai because of their LGBTQ status.
Jim, could you explain how that happens?
How that happens?
I mean, the person goes in for health care, and all you see is a person. So how does somebody know they're LGBTQ plus and therefore refuse them health care?
Because they identified themselves as such, as a part of the service that they were requesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, the second bullet states that the sole reason that these people were stated as a part of the survey, that the sole reason for their being denied care was their identity. So they identified themselves as LGBTQ for whatever reason. And so the survey is available. There's a link there if you guys want to take a look at it. And so because
Jim, I've got a question
Sure.
along the same thing on the healthcare. Is it a specific kind of healthcare? I mean, if you go in with a laceration and you need stitches, are they saying you can't have stitches because of your gender identity? Or is it some other kind of healthcare such as mental health care or some other form of healthcare that is related to their gender identity?
I would assume it'd be related to their gender identity. Otherwise, they wouldn't identify themselves as such. Yeah.
Jim
Sure.
Huffman. I presume these results have been shared with entities like YRMC and so on, and have they responded in any way?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, thanks.
So because of confidentiality, obviously, I don't have any data relative to this. But I do have some survey comments that were included in the report, so I put those on the next slide. So the person was accused of lying when trying to get help for some reason. And then they were told that the provider did not assist with personal medical agendas and they can't help people like you. Second comment, the person seeking help had to go outside the Prescott area because they were shamed by pediatricians in the area. Third comment, the person doesn't tell their healthcare providers that they're queer. And so they don't want to be questioned. So again, just the fact that these people are being denied care in our areas is not something that we want. So here's the proposed wording that our committee came up with to be included in the general plan. And it would be included, as I said, in the community quality element. So I numbered the subsection 12.1. That was just kind of a random thing that I did. But I looked at the plan this morning and I saw the 2015 plan had a cultural assessment section, which is 12.3. So this would probably be 12.3.1 if we were just going with what was done in 2015. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and read this. So as everybody's hometown, Prescott is a city that values the quality of life for all its inhabitants and embraces the cultural diversity of its residents. Prescott is home to people of varying backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives, and this diversity keeps the city vibrant and is an asset that we all can cherish. Prescott is therefore committed to ensuring that all people within its borders feel welcome. As such, the city will not condone discrimination or harassment of individuals based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender expression or identity, religious practice, spiritual practice, age, or mental, physical ability. So this is meant to be a starting point for discussion, but the committee thought these words would add to the plan in terms of showing that we are a welcoming community, that we live up to the name of being everybody's hometown.
Jim?
Yeah.
Don Michaelman. Do you believe that if wording like this was in the general plan, it's going to reduce discrimination?
I can hope so, but the general plan is voted on by the public. And so if we can get these words out there and have the public vote on it and say that they are willing to accept these words, we feel that's a step in the right direction.
Rob Moyer.
Rod Moyer, yes. I have a similar question to Don's, or comment, I guess. You had information about people that would feel better about Prescott if it had an anti-discrimination ordinance.
Yes.
I want to make sure you understand that a general plan is not an ordinance.
Oh, I certainly understand
By
that.
any stretch of the imagination.
I do understand that.
Okay.
Baby steps.
Any
Somebody had
other
a
questions? Terry?
Yeah, so along this same line as Rod's question, I read through this and I read all of the comments, and the references to a city ordinance, what would that look like? How would it be enforced? And would that impinge on the rights of other citizens to their freedom of speech? For example, many of the comments that I read that you provided and had references to the Republican Party, President Trump, and other conservative groups that they disagreed with and made them feel uncomfortable. So where does, everybody should be treated fairly, including people that have a different view.
True.
So how do you ensure that everyone is treated fairly without trampling on someone else's rights?
Well, the ordinance would be based on similar ordinance. So there's 11 cities within Arizona that already have non-discrimination ordinances. And basically what they state is that the city will not condone discrimination, and then they go into the qualifications that state that what is and what isn't going to be considered discrimination within the city. And so that all needs to be spelled out. And then the step would be that the city manager typically is put in charge of putting together a form that anybody that is discriminated against can fill out this form and submit it to a hearing officer, and then the parties are brought forward, and then some judgment is made relative to that. And then a fine is applied if the person is found to be found guilty of discriminating against somebody else. So the details of that still need to be worked out, but it would be something similar to what has been done in other cities.
And one along that same line, that brings up a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, where the city of Denver
Right.
had anti-discrimination ordinance, and they were fining a bakery
Right.
that refused to make certain kinds of cakes.
Right.
And that ordinance was found to be unconstitutional.
Right.
So how do you propose to make sure everyone is treated fairly without trampling on other people's constitutional rights?
Proposing.
Yeah.
Jim's not proposing. an ordinance. He's proposing this wording.
Wording, right. So that would be the next step. But we're not there yet. So, I have to do more research in terms of how this thing would be worded. But I understand what you're saying. I understand that, you want to make sure everybody's free speech rights are not violated. But there are ways to identify specific instances of discrimination where somebody is treated differently just because of who they are and been treated unfairly because of who they are. And so those would have to be identified within the ordinance to a point that it would be something that we can discuss and come to some conclusion as to what would work and what wouldn't.
Any other questions? Tammy, do we have any comments from the public? No comments.
Chair, this is Mary Frederickson. This is for Tammy. The suggestion is that this kind of wording might be appropriate under the community quality element. What department within the city is going to come talk to us about that element? I'm assuming that has not happened yet.
Thank you. Actually, the community quality has a lot of different departments in it. It has economic development, it has history. It's not just one. It was a catch-all for everything that wasn't required in the general plan. So another area this could be in is also the community vision. So that's someplace else we can look at it when we start discussing that.
So when the staff is pulling together the general plan that would be coming to the committee to look at and provide comment on, there's not any one particular
Element?
department that is in charge of community quality as an element.
No, there's not.
It's gathering from many different departments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That item also is for discussion, so we're not going to take any formal action. We have a presentation and discussion on the physical setting and history chapter of the general plan.
So this is kind of setting you guys up for how we're going to be reviewing elements. So what
Okay.
we're going to be doing, I sent you the element, the wording, and asked you to review it and to provide feedback back to us. So if you could put it on the screen, I think it's a PDF. We'll see how this is going to work. No, it'd be the
That looks
physical
good.
setting and history PDF. So we're working with IT still to try to figure out how.
That's not good.
I know, that's the problem. And we can't live edit it either. So we're working on, and let's see if this will, and this doesn't work either. Oh, it kind of does. Okay, so we can kind of go through it like this. We are looking possibility of having another room to have the meeting in, where we can actually show information on the screen and live edit it, so you guys can see the changes as we go for anything. But they're not televised and they're not recorded. We don't have another room where we can do that in. This is the only room we have for that. So it's something we wanted to kind of discuss with you, that this is a pretty simple, I brought a simple one to you first to try to get the conversation and see how the format's going to work. It is kind of a little clunky, mostly when we have a lot more to it, like the circulation or land use element or something. So we can keep doing it this way and see how it works, but we do possibly are looking into another room, or if they start remodeling this building, to have a better room to have these in, set up a little bit better for user-friendly for these type of groups. So it's something that we're kind of looking at. We have all the departments. They're all working on updating the elements. Everybody's busy too. So we're hoping to start having more elements to bring forward to you. And this is the kind of the format. We'll be including them in the agenda. I'll get them to you as soon as I can, actually. And then have them in this part of the agenda to agendize them. Then you guys will review them, and you can either send me comments or bring your comments to the meeting, and we can discuss it as we go through the elements. And most of those are going to start coming in January. January through July. the end of July, August at the latest, we have to have a draft done. Because then we have to go through the statutory requirements to start getting it through comment period, public hearings, and then to have a final draft approved by City Council the latest February of 2025 to get it on the August ballot of 2025. So we're getting crunch time now. You guys have been educated with all the presentations, and we hope they've been really helpful. And then the staff internally are updating the elements to make sure they're valid, they're readable, they're up to date on information, because a lot of it's outdated. And it's coming from city staff. They're the ones who are implementing this. So they're bringing you what they think are the goals and important information that should be in this guiding document. So we're hoping that it works out really well, and you guys will be really happy with how this is going to turn out. But this is kind of the format we'll be bringing it in. We'll show you. Probably won't have the changes like this one does. The things it might just be, it's just going to be updated to show you this is the new language, this is the new information, these are the new goals. And the Bike and Ped Committee have been working really hard on getting it where it's readable and you guys can see the changes. Some of the others aren't doing that, but we're hoping that this really will help you guys.
Ted?
Okay. Gary?
Well, I think no matter what, one of the things I'm most appreciative of for you and staff is the interaction, sitting with you and then submitting goals for open space trails was tremendous uplifting for me, and it put that vision for the element in better perspective. I think all of us being together is wonderful, but I think each one of us should represent something with you in a one-on-one or one-on whatever for what is important in that element, rather than put all the burden on yourselves. For me, it works.
Well, what we could do is see what the staff comes up with, and then if you want to get with that group, that staff member, then to edit it or to change it. Or you've already been sending stuff to like Joe and Chris, which
Right.
is fine. If you're interested in an element and you want to reach out or go attend the Bike and Ped Committee, you're welcome to do that to see what they're doing.
Well, we're about to have changing of the guard, and my immediate thought was those two people sitting as chair and vice chair should have tremendous interaction with staff for
And
this.
we meet with them a lot before.
Oh, I'm sure you
meetings.
do, knowing Ted.
But like I said, as long as right as we're getting the updated elements, we're going to be sending that information out to you to start looking at. So to start commenting on. So you can either send the comments to me, and I can include them on notes for proposed changes or comments, and then or we can try to live edit it in the meeting.
By 2024, are we going to cut that rainfall figure in half?
I hope not. Seemed like it this year, definitely. Well, who knows what the winter's going to be like? We could average 13 inches of snow this year. You never know. So, looking at this element, the physical setting and history, did anyone have any additional comments or changes or additions?
Not what's up on, sorry, Mary Fredrickson, not what's up on the screen, but did have something as far as, I don't know if you can, there was reference to the Smoky, and I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, Smoky
Smoky.
Museum. Hasn't that name changed?
I believe so. And that's something we can, okay, the smoke.
Okay.
Okay.
And then it goes on, the next paragraph talks about the tribe opening up their own cultural center. Do you know if there's coordination between whatever the new name, it's the Indigenous Peoples Museum, Smoke Eye changed to? Do you know if the tribe and that museum is going to coordinate, or is the old museum going to go away in favor of this much bigger cultural museum?
We can try to reach out for any updated plans. It's very hard to get information from them. Every time we've tried to get them to participate in regional projects and discussions, it's very hard to get because they are their own entity.
True enough, but to the extent that they have provided information, any indication as to when they're thinking of doing such a thing?
I'll reach out to them and see if they have any updated plans, because that's been in the works, being discussed for a long, like 10 years or something. So
Wasn't there some plan at one point about a new casino down kind of in that Pocket.
Another?
Or the cultural center that they are
Right.
planning, or the convention center is what I believe that's what they were going to do.
Right.
And we haven't heard anything otherwise, but I'll try to reach out to their planner, figure out who it is now, and
From a city standpoint, though, we're not looking to coordinate that existing museum with whatever the tribe's doing.
no.
Okay, thanks.
Were there any other comments to this section? Okay.
Then that brings us to any updates?
Yeah. First is the next meeting is November. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Before we get off of that topic, the format we're talking, I'm sorry, I'm
A
George
little
Worley,
closer, George.
George Worley, Planning Manager. The process that we just went through with this is how we intend to go through each of the elements. We will number pages when we send it out to you, and we will go through page 1, page 2, page 3 for any comments that you have. So you'll get the documents in advance to make up any notes, any changes, any recommendations, and we'll go through them step by step. In fact, we may even number paragraphs to make it easier for you to say, I have a change in paragraph 4, or I have a change on page 5. So that we can go through these as fast as possible, make sure we get all of your comments captured by that. And we've done that the last few times, and my predecessors did it before me back about the time they invented the alphabet.
So our next meeting is scheduled for November 29th, which is the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. Will everybody be around? Just before I make sure.
That's plenty of time.
Okay. Okay. So we'll
Except,
still
of
have
course, for me.
except you.
You can come
Well,
and
you can
visit.
come and visit.
You can
I could
visit.
come and visit.
And we do have a new member, and he's already added on to the distribution list. So we'll introduce him at the next meeting if he's available.
November 29th, you said?
Yes. Which is the Wednesday after Thanksgiving.
So it's the usual last Wednesday.
Yep.
And is
Yes.
George bringing leftovers?
I don't think George cooks, so
So yeah, do all you want.
and Chelsea, you had some updates.
Hi, thank you, Tammy. Chelsea Walton, Interim Community Development Director. Just wanted the committee to be aware that a citizen survey was initiated and sent through the city manager's office. It'll provide more data points that the committee can look at and consider in updating the general plan. Our city manager, Katie Gregory, reported out on it. I can't remember at this past council meeting or maybe past council meetings, but the survey is going to be concluded and the data points collected in December. So there are a myriad of questions that will be beneficial for the committee to consider. So those will be filtered through Tammy and get out to you for either discussion or consideration at an upcoming meeting for the committee. Also, just to kind of set up a foreshadowing of what's going on as far as council and their goal setting, the strategic plan, I believe, is scheduled for January or maybe February. And we want to make sure that council's goals and the general plan are in concert. So staff will be meeting with Ms. Gregory here in the next couple of weeks just to give her a basis of where we are, where we're going, what we've done, just so that we stay in a constant communication with the city manager's office and make sure that council's goals are well reflected in the general plan and that there's a consistency overall for the organization. So wanted to let you know that'll be happening, and we'll obviously report back through Tammy with any updates or questions or pertinent information for the committee. Rod had a question.
Chelsea, I was perhaps randomly selected to do that survey. Should I decline to do that, or should I do it?
You should do it as a citizen of Prescott.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. And congratulations on that random selection.
So this is not really relevant to the meeting, but it's relevant to what we represent. I wanted to thank both Ted and Brandon Montoya for every Saturday showing up in public places and letting the public beat them up. I think that takes a lot of armor.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, that's all I had. Thank you, Tammy.
And also, we had the survey that was on the website, the Plan Prescott website. We're going to be closing that, and I'll be getting all that together in the comments for the questions that were asked and start sending that to you. And then also put it on the website, because I know with we had, I think last time I checked was like 400 or something people did the survey, and over 100 people did the fill-in questions. I'll take it some of that time was after a snowstorm, and they were kind of venting. So there's some interesting comments that I've read. So, but I'll have all that in a Word format, and then as a, they also put it where it's like random words. I forgot what it's called. On the screen. So that's the way the program provides the output. But I will have a link to the probably the survey, because I don't want to email that. It'll probably be pretty big PDF. So I'll put it on the website so everyone can see, and I'll send out the link to those comments and the results.
Anything else?
That is all.
Well, according to George Worley's calendar, this is my last meeting as a member of the plan, of the general plan, and so therefore I haven't prepared any comments. However, it's never stopped me before. I first want to thank the public for coming to the meetings. Not only have they participated, but I think we've shown an openness to entertain topics that maybe haven't been entertained before, today being an example of that. I wanted to thank staff, because I always enjoy working with staff. And I wanted to thank Kathy Rusing and Brandon Montoya and Eric Moore, City Council, for showing up here. And maybe to the members, I wanted to say a few words going forward. It's been really helpful to be on the general plan and on the planning commission, because even though the general plan is not legally binding, it kind of sets the direction of the city, not just by you 10 smart people, but also the citizens, because they vote for it. And I think it's important that when citizens vote, they know what they're voting for. And I'll give you an example. I'll go to Gary's last Saturday. Brandon and I were at True Value. And so one person came by and said, "What are you guys doing?" "Well, we're open to talk to the residents and see what issues are important and how we're doing." And he said, "Well, I don't have anything." I said, "Okay." He said, "Are you voting?" He says, "For what?" And I had copies, thanks to Sarah, of the 13 proposed amendments to the city charter. And I said, "Well, you're voting for this. You have a petition in your house?" "Yeah." "Have you filled it out yet?" "No." He says, "Well, I was listening to the guy on the radio, and he said not to vote for any of them." And so I asked him, I said, "Well, which ones do you not like?" "None of them." He said, "You show me one of these that are worth my vote." And I said, like, turn to the page where it said, "There's no longer an accounting firm that'll sign a 3-year contract to audit the city's financing. So we have to switch to 5 years. Since it's in the charter, we don't have a choice." He said, "Okay, I'll vote for that." Then I went to the second and the third and the fourth. When I got to 7, where he agreed, I said, "Here, you can take it from here on out to the 13. Well, that's an example of reaching out to the residents and getting them involved, so they don't listen to somebody on the radio because he has a biased opinion. They're making judgments based on going through it. I've had people come to my house and ask me to take them through all 13. Well, I use that example because I think the general plan is kind of the same thing. You know, if you don't know what's in there and you vote for it, 2 years later on the general plan, and we saw this in the Planning Commission in the last few years. 2015 general plan says this ought to be zoned this way. Somebody comes forth with a proposal to zone it this way. All of a sudden, the neighbors come out and say, "We don't want it." Or they said, "We ought to have affordable housing," and the neighbors come out and say, "We don't want it." The final words I leave with you is not just work the plan, but work the communication of the plan, so when the people vote for it in 2025, they have an idea what they're voting for. So when a proposal comes down the road a year, 2, 3 years later, they say, "Oh yeah, that's right. We we had that in the general plan and we agreed with it. So, and then finally, I wanted to thank the committee. I've enjoyed working with you all. I think you're some of the smartest people in the city of Prescott, and I think people ought to listen to what you produce when it comes out in 2025. Thank you very much.
Tell me again you didn't have any comments prepared.
Thank you, Ted. Are you gonna-
Thanks, Ted.
Meeting adjourned.
Good job, Ted.